Hello, welcome to something a little different. I'm gonna do a little talking about win streaking, pretty much. I streamed and cleared I'm at 15 right now. The win streak is not over. I haven't been recording off stream because I just want to let the win streak go on Twitch. So I wanted to take some time though to talk about I don't know, slice and dice, how I've been learning the game, things that I've been learning specifically to the game, and things I've been learning just as far as learning games goes. So, this spreadsheet I have here right now is my spreadsheet. I made this. This is just all of the heroes and my thoughts on them, their color and their HP, and then one for the curses. I'm gonna quickly gloss over the heroes to talk about some examples of things that I've learned and how I've been going about learning this game. But then I have another spreadsheet here, which is not made by me. I don't know who made this, but this is the full almanac for Slice and Dice. This has everything in it. So in case you wanted to take a look at this, someone linked this to me. I wanted to share this with you somewhere. So it has all the heroes, all the curses, tweaks, blessings, events, everything. What are events? I don't know what these are. Ah, challenges, tweaks, rerolls. Got it. Yeah. I'll have a link to this. I'm not going to reference this too much, but I might put like this section into mine as like a little glossary. It's really nice to have this. But there's +2 special cases? Yeah, it also has an explanation about generated heroes. Okay, anyway. So first I want to talk about what I've learned about learning games. This is something that I've been feeling both in Monster Train lately and in this game. And that's that tier lists are a bit of a problem, I feel like, for me. I'm starting to come to terms with it and realize that even though they're a lot of fun, I think that making tier lists makes me a lot worse at games because I start to try to put things into these, like, this is always bad and this is always good sort of categories, which is just not true. And it leads you to some bad thinking. So I'm going to talk about 3 heroes specifically that I have had a pretty big opinion shift. This is going based on my tier list I made after winning 5. So we're going to talk about today Gambler. We're going to talk about Gambler. We're going to talk about... Who are the other two? It's Gambler, Ghast, and then there's one more that I wanted to speak about. Who was the other one? It's not Sparky. Don't worry, it's not Sparky. Oh, it's Jester. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight these. I wrote my full thoughts out here, but I'm gonna actually pull it up in the almanac because it's easier if you can see the sides. I know what the sides are, but you may not. So let's start by talking about Gambler. Where's Gambler? There they are. So Gambler is the old 5, 2, 1, 3 X's, and the X's are on top and bottom, right? Now, originally, if you remember, I ranked Gambler as one of the worst heroes in the game. I really thought Gambler was not good, and in the context of the tier list that I was making, Gambler was not good because that tier list does not consider context. However, contextually, Gambler is actually pretty strong because of the 2 X's, actually. Because the 5 is good, right? The 5 is, of course, very good. The 2 is average and the 1 is below average, and the 3 X's are bad. But because these 2 X's here are on top and bottom, you can use a lot of really good items. There are a lot of early items that are stronger than their tier. So for example, where is it? You see, this is why I should do some prep so I'm not just scrolling through these. Not Seedling, but the other one. Worn Arms. Worn Arms replaces the top and bottom with 2 damage shield 2. On basically every other early game character, I'd like to go back to heroes. On basically every other early game character except for like Student, and obviously Thief and Scoundrel, right? You're replacing sides that are already there. Yeah, the only character in tier 2 other than Gambler that uses this item 100% efficiently is Statue. So it turns these items that are already pretty good into extremely good. And it makes those items a safe pick because you can use something like Worn Arms to cover, I don't know, like early Cultist now has a little bit of a better pair of sides. And then later on, you end up seeing a worst case like Gambler Statue, and all of a sudden, Gambler is now a 10 out of 10 pick, you see. And so all that context is to show you that Gambler baseline 52XX1X is terrible. This character is horrible because you're going to miss so much, you're going to roll so many X's, it's terribly inconsistent. But Gambler is actually the sort of thing that if you plan around and you put contingency plans into your run, which is not hard to do because most of the tier 1s are bad, the benefit of a tier 1 just being this makes a unpickable character pair very strong all of a sudden is really good for tier 1s because most tier 1s are actively harmful. So Gambler I've probably had the biggest shift in opinion on. I don't think that this is like contextually I pick Gambler because Gambler wins me the run. It's not like a Trapper sort of character, but Gambler is good if you can make it work. So that's the big one that I wanted to talk about. So there's only one character in the game I still think is just unplayable, and it's Enchanter. I think Enchanter is just really bad. It's hard to... The problem is... I'll talk about it briefly. I didn't mean to talk about Enchanter. But the problem with Enchanter is that the characters that want heal, shield, and self-heal, self-shield are not tier 2s. They're typically tier 3s. It's things like Warlock and Barbarian, right? Like, you can put it on Berserker, but Berserker's not doing enough damage to himself where he needs self-heal, self-shield. Instead of giving Enchanter, if you wanted to keep Berserker alive, you could just play Disciple, who does the same thing a lot better. So, and also Enchanter's spell is just bad and the rest of her sides are bad. Like, I think Enchanter is pretty irredeemable. There's going to come a time where I have some setup for Enchanter. And I think the setup is something with Siphon. Then you can cheese the self-heal to give a character like 20 HP through statue, maybe. But I think Enchanter is the only one I haven't found the use case for. But who else was I going to talk about? I was going to talk about Jester. That's the other one. Jester was a character when I started out that I thought you pick every time. I thought you pick Jester when you see Jester because Jester wins you the game. That was my original feeling. I realized that Jester is not like this anymore because... Let me paint you the picture, shall I? So your team is... You're picking your last blue, right? And your team is... Let's say it's Herbalist. I'm just going to pick them as I go. It's like Herbalist, Warden, Collector... let's say it's Ninja, maybe? Herbalist, Warden, Collector, Ninja. Yeah. So, in that team, because what Jester brings is a reroll cantrip, and what a reroll cantrip does is it gives you the ability to hit for other characters better while he fishes for 3 mana. In that team that I just lined out, your team doesn't have many X's. You're not really looking for anything. The team is just consistently okay. Right? You're hitting... Herbalist is hitting 2s and 1s. Your Collector has no X's and is always doing decent damage. Warden has no X's and is always either blocking or doing 2. And so you would be thinking about it and you would be going... What did I say? I said Ninja, right? You'd be saying... Well, Ninja's actually a bad choice here. Let's say Spellblade. Yeah, let's say Spellblade. Spellblade's a better answer because Ninja you could say, oh, well, I take Jester for the cantrip copycat, which is not wrong. Spellblade, though, is pretty consistently fine. So in that team, if I were offered Jester versus like Evoker, I would probably pick... I would definitely pick Evoker. Also, sorry, when I said there was no tier 2 with double X's, I forgot about Evoker. Yeah, so that's just an example, right? Because before I had myself thinking that Jester was the character that you just see and pick. I've realized that Jester is good when he's good, and that's the case for a lot of characters. There's not many characters that you would pick in every situation. So it's just important to make a note somewhere that like there's no always good character and there's no always bad character except for I think Enchanter is always bad. And I think Sparky's pretty close. And then the last one I want to talk about is Ghast. Oh, there's a secret character down here. I haven't seen that. So we have Ghast, right? Ghast has a bit of a problem, which is why it's hard to rank him because it's either a jump on the death first, because Ghast is good if you have death synergies, but death synergies aren't good unless you have Ghast, I find. However, I don't think that means that Ghast is bad, because Ghast has the 2/2 damage weakens, which can really lock enemies out of a fight, I find, anyway. But I don't really want to spend too much time talking about Ghast. Ghast is okay. I think that he's a lot better than things like Artifice or an Ace, but they all have their use cases. It's important to make sure that you have a good understanding, and this is gonna be important when we talk about curses as well. It's important to make sure that you have a good understanding of how you're winning the game. And how you're winning this game is by answering the question of how am I killing enemies, right? And so there's two types of combat you have to be ready for. You have to be ready for combats where there's a swarm of small enemies, and you have to be ready for combats versus Hexia and the other two, right? Hand and Dragon. And by that I mean combats where the enemies have 40 HP. So let me paint you another hypothetical picture, right? Your team could be something like, well, it could be like Dabalist. I guess I don't wanna do all of these team hypotheticals actually. I think they're hard to understand. Basically, the thought is pretty simple. There are characters that are really good at killing bosses. Those are characters like Fencer technically if you have the right item. Assassin is pretty good at it. The big one of course is Venom, wherever Venom is on here. Where is Venom on here? There's Venom. Those are characters that kill bosses, and then there are characters that are good at just being like consistently good at getting you there. Ludus is pretty okay at that, Dancer is good at that. And so you end up, particularly in the blues, it matters where it's like Warlock, Weaver, and Sorcerer, you build around them and they kill bosses. The other blues, you add them to your run and they support the rest of your team. Artificer is the sort of character where you pick him and he helps you deal with that big AoE problem because the rest of your team is doing fine. And then you get to the final boss and he generates you 8 mana and then fucks off, which is, sometimes all you need. Anyway, I don't want to spend infinity time talking about all the characters. I think there's a lot to talk about. I might grab Cranberry to do a discussion video a little more in depth. What I want to talk about here now is the curses, because I promised you a curses tier list video and I've decided that that's a bad idea. So instead I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how I rank the curses and which curses I think you should really look out for. So I basically rank the curses on a sliding scale from always pick this to never pick this, and that's in the slam, take, okay, pass, hell no categories. And then there's a sixth special category, which is the category, which I think means, which means that I think the curse is fine, but I don't like it because I think it's unfun, so I don't play it. The perfect example of the curses are the D level curses. I think that they're 100% fine, but I think it's kind of boring. Sticking a tier 2 in the final comp is not something that's that crazy to do, so I think I will pick these when it's bad, but I don't enjoy it. Or rather, I'll pick it when it's everything else is bad, I should say. Anyway, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about each curse individually. I'll have a link to the spreadsheet in the description if you want to go look through them all with my notes, and this is subject to change as well. But I want to talk about the curses that I think you should be on the lookout for, so I think the top 3 best curses in the game and the top 3 worst curses in the game. So if we go by rating here, I'm actually going to sort this by rating. I lost the rating keyword, it's fine. I'll undo this, don't worry. So I have, what is this, 5 curses for Hell No, Middle Blank, Pain Edges, Small Bonus, Stone Monsters, Undying Monsters, and Wanded. I think this is 6. So these are the 6 curses where you want to do everything in your power to make sure that your starting 4 curses are not these 4 curses, or any combination of these 4 curses. Now, on the sliding scale, I think that Small Bonus is pretty close. It's probably not so bad. The problem with Small Bonus is that it's a real big problem if you run into something like an egg you can't kill or graves, right? I'll probably, you know what I'll do too? I'll add to this a description of each of the curses in case you don't know. That's a good idea. But I think Small Bonus and Wanded are probably the least bad of these 4, or these 6. I think Middle Blank and Pain Edges are in the middle, and then I think that Stone Monsters and Undying Monsters is absolutely not worth taking ever. Barricade should be here too, actually. Where's Barricade? Barricade should be a hell no. I actually think this is unplayable. But yeah, Barricade's also just a hard pass. I think that these are the sort of curses where you have to make sure that when you're rerolling, you have... I think that when I reroll my curses, I make sure that there's at least one of these in the reroll set that I'm doing so that I don't see it. I want to lessen the odds that I'm locked to playing one of these curses, for sure. And then in the slam category, I want to talk about... I have a lot of them here, and I think there's a few more. I think that the three big ones to look out for are Mana Debt. I'm pretty sure this is the easiest curse in the game. Slime Demic is really close to easiest, and top 3 Poisoned is extremely fine. I think that top 3 Poisoned is scary at the start of the run, so you have to make sure it doesn't kill you there, and it can be bad into Lich. But other than that, top 3 Poisoned is very easy to play into. Sometimes it's even a buff if you have Venom. And then I think the third turn curses are all pretty free. I've had a little bit of trouble with them, but nothing that's insurmountable. And then the endgame ad curses are pretty free as well. Ouroboros is on here. I want to give it a special mention. It's apparently a 1 in 500 to even have this curse show up. And what it does, if you've never seen it, is imps can now spawn Hexia as one of their sides. So, you know, as I noted here, this is a more of a personal rating. It's either never going to do anything or it's going to create a really funny highlight clip where you spite Hexia in Combat 4, which is both fun. Then there's some other wiggle room in here, like Add Wisp is probably in the slam category. I think Tower might not be that good, right? I'm moving them around as I play, but I don't want to spend a bunch of time just reading this spreadsheet to you. I'm going to leave it to you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the curses and the philosophy, because that's what I'm going to talk about for the remainder of this video. This is the philosophy, because I've had a lot of people talk to me who are good at these kinds of games. They're good at Slay the Spire, they're good at Monster Train, and they say to me, man, I'm having a lot of trouble with Slice and Dice. What's going on? It's been hard for me to pick up. And the answer is, this game forces you to be a lot more conservative than any other game that I've ever played. You have to you'll find yourself in a position, I'm going to pull another example here. Because basically, almost every character has a 1 in 6 chance to miss, so you have to start thinking about it from that term, or in those terms, right? So a good example here would be your Wanderer, you have 1 reroll left, and your Wanderer has rolled a 2 damage Era side, but your quad use side is going to win you the game. This is a bad example because you probably just rolled that, actually. Let's talk about, I guess we could talk about the king of EV, Ludus here. Ludus is the sort of character where if you turn your brain off and just roll every time you don't see a 5 or a 6, you're going to end up hitting a lot more 1s and 2s than you would like. The goal isn't to high roll every time, the goal is to make sure you don't low roll. And this extends to the curses as well. Fencer's another good example. Imagine you're against an enemy set where there's one big guy, but you have like Serration double strike, right? But you hit your pristine. You have to consider holding your pristine, like you have to stop and make sure that it's right for you to reroll, because sometimes holding a 6 damage pristine is better than just winning the fight, because it'll set you up in case you miss on the turn after this and the turn after this, right? I found myself a lot of times thinking about this game and going, oh, well, 2 turns from now, 3 turns from now, I'll definitely have hit by then. And then you miss 3-4 turns in a row and lose your run. And that's fine, right? Sometimes you're going to have these situations where you're just low rolling, right? And if all you care about is your win rate, it doesn't matter because you can play the high percentage plays. But if you're trying to rack up a big win streak, you have to be thinking about and covering the absolute worst cases. And when I say if all you care about is your win rate, I mean you can just play faster, lose runs faster because you low roll, and like have really bad rolls happen to you, but then get more runs in to overall increase your volume of runs. I want to talk about it from a mid-game character perspective though, because I feel like the better example is, like Trapper's a good example actually. On Trapper, there are times where even though the 1 damage vulnerable is not as good as like killing a grave with a kill 4 enemy or less, or kill 4 HP or less, you have 1 reroll left, you have the vulnerable. If you roll and hit an X, it's really bad, right? It's like, oh man, I have just passed my turn versus making progress towards the end. That's the philosophy you have to adopt. And what you have to understand is when you have characters in your team and you're in a certain fight, you have to be doing a mental calculation each turn. What is the best side I can hit here? What is the worst side I can hit here? What are the middle of the road rolls, right? And you have to make sure you're updating that constantly so that you continuously understand, okay, while I want my ninja to hit the 2 damage double use, it's okay to hold the 1 damage copycat if I have 1 reroll, because if my ninja rolls a dodge here, they have wasted their turn and I am behind. The enemies will be outputting a certain amount of expected damage every turn, and if you're not able to keep up with it and kill them faster than they're doing damage to you, you will eventually run out of health. It is more of a race than it is a marathon in most fights. There are some characters that can turn it into a marathon every fight, but most of these fights are a race to stabilize the fight and kill enemies before they start killing you. So that's just how you have to think about it, I think. Another good example would be Dabble. Sometimes you hold the 1 damage because if you roll the heal 5 on turn 1, you go, man, that sucks. And so the same sort of thought goes into playing around the curses, in that it matters more that you're picking, like there are times where I will pick a take, like a middle of the road take or pass level curse versus rerolling because I didn't see any of the hell no's in my first pick. Like last night I played Monster Pristine, which I think is borderline really bad. And I picked it because my starting curses were all just middle of the road, not great. And if I rerolled, there was a decent chance that I hit like Stone Monsters, Undying Monsters, Wandiz, Sandstorm, something like that, right? And that's obviously much worse. So this game is a lot less about rolling dice and high rolling, and it's a lot more about understanding and mitigating bad luck if you want to win a lot. Hopefully this helps, because I wanted to do this conversation, and now that I've hit a 15 streak, I feel like I am allowed to, basically. I'll never really feel like I'm able to talk about games with much authority, because there's always someone out there that's going to be better than me. But for now, I feel like I can help you if you want to get a little better at understanding how to play this game. I hope this helps, basically. I might try doing some higher difficulty stuff once I finish with hard, but I might also just give this game a break soon. I'll probably still play hard once a day, sort of like I have been, once I'm finished with this big streak, but anyway, that's a thought for another time. For now, I hope you found this helpful. Feel free, if you have any questions, you can hop in my Discord. I am happy to talk about this game. I'll have a link to my spreadsheet and the almanac in the description if you want to take a look at those. And yeah, have a good one. Goodbye.